I'm pretty sure that Emily is catloafing at me. Hello, and welcome to, or back to, my channel. I'm Kit, and here we talk about harmful beliefs and ideas promoted by certain influencers, content creators, and so on. And today, we're going to look at Candace Owens' contribution to trad life rhetoric. Before we get into it, I would like to note that I don't know Candace, and these are my thoughts and opinions on the content she puts out for public consumption. That being said, thank you for clicking on this video, and I would like to give extra thanks to my patrons. Links to my socials and Patreon are below, along with sources and resources, and now, on to the reason we're all here. Candace Owens is a political commentator employed by the Daily Wire, and that probably tells you all you need to know about why she would post a video titled "Women Are Tired of Working 40 Hours a Week" and what conclusions she draws within it. But this is a symptom of a broader issue. Besides the deliberate misrepresentation of feminism, Candace is yet another conservative talking head telling women they need to get married and stay home. They would be happier there. Conservatives are really doubling down on strict gender roles, and that leads to her saying some pretty wild things that would actually be hilarious if she and her coworkers didn't want people to take them seriously. Let's get into it.
A lot of young women who are now in the workforce, that promised feminist dream, the feminist glory, you're gonna love it, you're gonna be just like men. Male parity is what we want. We want to work 40 hours a week.
Starting off strong, Candace knows perfectly well that feminism isn't about parodying men. And since when is manhood about working 40 hours a week? And since when do conservatives look down on work? I know they don't like workers, but usually they can't sing the praises of employment and job creators loud enough. She does, however, flirt with the point.
Yeah, they're kind of figuring out that that's not really that great. You're not making that much money. You're working a lot of hours. You don't have that much time for yourself.
Yes, very good. We take time out of our limited time on Earth to help a company make money, and we get very little in return. But rather than conclude that, perhaps, if nothing else, Candace is a conservative after all, wages should be raised and work hours shortened, Candace takes a hard right. She shares a TikTok, always TikTok, of a woman, always a woman, crying as she asks why she has to work 40 hours a week to afford a 2-bedroom apartment and only has $300 left over, which isn't even enough for her phone, and she wasn't made for this. I'm sure you'll never guess where Candace goes.
I feel like we should answer her question. She is asking why, right? Why is this the circumstance? Well, the answer, sweetheart, is because big, bold, bad feminists came before you and insisted that women could be just like men.
Candace says she's going to answer the woman's question, but she actually doesn't. The woman didn't ask why she has to work. She wants to know why she has nothing to show for it. Anytime someone says something about work or the economy, Candace and her fellows always jump to women in the workforce. That's the cause of everything, not corporate greed, not global events. If women just went back home and had a man to support them, everything would be right in the world.
We obviously are not just like men. We are different entirely from men, right? We are symbiotic with men, but our roles in life are not meant to be the same. And I'm speaking strictly biologically. Men are wired different than women. Feminists came around and they kind of transgendered people in the mind. They brainwashed women into believing that they could be just like men. Here, take a birth control pill, you won't get pregnant. You can instead go to work, right? Work just alongside your male counterparts.
That's a new one. Feminism transgendered the mind. Does no one vet Candace's scripts? I would like to note that people have always been working. Once upon a time, it was work just to make sure you were clothed and fed because you had to make or harvest those items yourself. There is no point in history where it was normal for men to go out and do stuff and for women to just hang out at home. Anyway, I'm going to let Candace rant for a bit, but I want to let everyone know that the woman in the TikTok said nothing about marriage or parenthood. She was just pointing out the futility in working to barely afford living, let alone anything more or saving for retirement.
And women are realizing that despite this dream that's sold to you, despite being propagandized in the school system, it's gonna be so great, this is about freedom, that actually women are kind of miserable.
The idea that you have to work for pay, that you have to constantly be producing, that if you work hard, you'll have a better life, that if you don't have paid employment, you're lazy, that is capitalism's teaching, not feminism. And I really want Candace to plainly state that she wants women to find a man to live off of. I have a feeling her male fans wouldn't like that too much, but that is what she's saying. She just couches it as feminism brainwashing women into working, instead of it being something we all have to do to survive, and if women could just deprogram themselves, they would be happy housewives, when, in reality, men and women are much more complicated than Candace and friends allow, and being a housewife is not living on Easy Street. You would be trading one form of work for another, and which one is preferred is up to the individual. Anyway, now I'll let Candace rant.
That maybe Mother Nature had some things right. Maybe just the ability to be able to have children, to be able to feed children naturally from your body. It means, call me crazy, that you might be more naturally inclined to raise children. That's what I recognize, that I know what to do with the kids in a way that does not come as naturally to my husband. We're talking about infants. Women just know what to do. But you say these things and the feminists go, oh, how dare you say that? Men should be doing the exact same work. Okay, they can. Yeah, sure. You could beat it into a guy's head and say, no, you must raise infants at home every day. But it's not what comes naturally to them, right? And so, yes, we should instead answer her question.
So if caring for infants comes naturally to women, if being home with the kids is what makes women happy, why isn't Candace at home with her 3 kids, the youngest of which is 3 months old? Anyway, Candace reads a tweet from Matt Walsh, which basically boils down to 40 hours a week isn't that much. How much more free time do you really think you should have? Matt was apparently compelled to give this response because of his manliness.
How interesting. Matt Walsh is a man. So yes, it comes naturally to him. I find that men are able to do the same thing day in and day out like warriors. They're just biologically predisposed to doing these sorts of things.
I'm so curious as to what sorts of things Candace thinks warriors were doing day in and day out. And I'm especially curious as to what aspects of modern life she thinks are similar to being a warrior.
And women, when you see them in a household, you see that the multitasking, the way that a woman is able to deal with a child that is screaming while also handling other things, we are designed in that way and in that capacity.
So men are designed to go out and be warriors, though I'm pretty sure being an actual warrior looked very different to working at, say, an office or a construction site. And women are designed to stay home and multitask with screaming children. I was going to say I'll take being a warrior, but I forgot. I'm a woman, so I can't possibly want that. My brain has just been transgendered by feminism.
And unfortunately, women are not willing to just let go of this feminist narrative and to recognize that nothing that feminists convinced us of actually makes us happy today, right? It might help you pay your bills, bare minimum.
I would love to hear some of the things Candace believes feminism convinced women of. I would also love to hear how the US was apparently socialist until the 1970s when feminism invented capitalism. Anyway, let's get uncomfortably weird.
But if we were looking before the explosion of second wave feminism, that young woman would likely have found a partner, right? She would likely have already been married. She may have 1 kid.
I have so many questions. Why is Candace writing fan fiction about a stranger? Why is she assuming that's what the woman wants? Why is she assuming the woman will be happier in that scenario? If you're struggling to pay bills when single, that struggle won't automatically go away just because you get married, especially if getting married means you quit paid employment and thus 2 adults supporting themselves turns into 1 adult supporting 2, and that struggle doesn't improve if you add kids. Candace and company are trying to paint this rosy, idealistic image of marriage and motherhood, but if you're not happy with your life or if you're struggling, marriage and kids isn't going to fix that. In fact, they'll probably make it worse.
They told you that that was prison. Oh my gosh, why would you want that? That's absolute prison. 1 man going to work would have been enough because women were not yet in the labor force to support an entire family based on his income alone.
What is she talking about? Women weren't yet in the labor force. Women worked before 1970.
And that was a different existence and a different world. But if you ask me, quite frankly, women were happier when I think about that, okay? My grandmother was not crying every day on TikTok, or obviously didn't have TikTok, but crying every day about the stresses of what it was like to raise her children. She stayed at home, she raised her kids, she made dinner every single night, and that stuff made her whole.
That's great for Candace's grandmother. My grandmother's worked. My great-grandmother's worked. I come from a long line of farmers, and being a farmer's wife is work, so even my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother's worked. This notion that before the 1970s, women just stayed home is false. This notion that before the 1970s, people were happier is false. History is interesting and we should learn from it, but we shouldn't romanticize it.
It's just a complete reversal of the roles.
She says, while having her own show with over 2 million subscribers. Anyway, she shares another tweet from Matt Walsh, who has decided that women actually don't want professional careers. Society just convinced them they do, but also clarifies that childcare is work and would take more than 40 hours a week. In short, Matt says life is work and to suck it up. And Candace agrees, but says caring for kids is a different kind of work, and being exhausted from her children is rewarding. So why isn't she home with them? She also says this weird thing.
And maybe the feedback that a man gets when he climbs a corporate ladder, feels like he's going out to war and conquering.
This desire to push that women being at home is so fulfilling and rewarding, and men being at work is so fulfilling and rewarding, leads to some pretty bizarre statements. Also, why does she keep linking men and work with war?
But these are things, again, that we should be willing to talk about, that we should be willing to acknowledge. Is it every single woman that feels this overwhelmed? No. But it is, in my view, a large majority of women who are feeling dissatisfied and are unwilling to look at the fact that it is our own fault for grabbing onto a radical feminist movement. Not our fault because we were younger and it happened before we were born, but we're still embracing those ideas and looking down upon women who are finally saying, no, thank you. We shouldn't look down upon them. I think that's the direction that we need to head toward.
No, you shouldn't look down on women who don't do what you do, basically. But when Candace says these are things we should be willing to talk about, she doesn't mean income inequality. She just means how feminists forced women to work. Hats off to Candace, though. She skated up to the point and then past it without a glance. And I think that's on purpose. It hasn't escaped my notice that there is a conservative push for traditionalism, which seems to mean a return to the 1950s. The influencers encouraging women to use natural family planning, the talking heads urging women to marry, influencers telling women it's okay and even natural to financially rely on a man, talking heads assuring women that it's natural for women to feel burnt out at work, they weren't designed for it. Everyone saying that women were biologically designed to be at home. Let me know in the comments if you've also noticed this trend. It seems to be spreading. And that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.